Rain tapped against the convenience store's fogged windows, the fluorescent lights inside casting jagged shadows on the aisles. Calvin Mercer leaned against the counter, his pencil drumming a restless beat as he watched Amara through the warped security mirror. Her reflection stretched and blurred, but her calmness was unmistakable, hands steady as she scanned the candy shelf, backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. His jaw tightened. Third time this week, he thought, though he couldn't recall any proof. She lingered near a chocolate bar, and his breath hitched. "Act natural, kid," he muttered, louder than intended. Amara's fingers brushed her phone in her pocket, her mother's voice echoing in her head. "Keep receipts, baby. Always." She turned slowly, meeting Calvin's stare as he rounded the counter, his boots squeaking on the linoleum. A customer glanced up from the chips aisle, phone half raised. "See something you like?" Calvin barked, voice booming for the small audience. "Or just window shopping?" Amara's reply was ice. "I'm good, sir." The rain thickened, hammering the roof as Calvin jabbed a finger toward her bag. "Empty that. Now." She unzipped it without flinching, pencils, a hair tie, math homework spilling onto the counter. Calvin's hands shook as he rifled through, his performative rage clashing with her stillness. "Where's the rest?" he grumbled, sweat beading, under his collar. Amara's phone buzzed. Uncle D flashed on the screen, and her lips curved faintly. "The rest is my business." The door chimed. A cop stepped in, rainwater dripping from his hat, and Calvin waved him over, relief flooding. His voice, "Officer, been waiting?" Amara didn't blink. The officer hesitated, hand hovering near his radio, as tires splashed through a puddle outside. The teen near the chip aisle kept filming, the camera's red light a tiny, unblinking eye. Calvin's reflection in the security mirror wavered, his authority crumbling like wet paper. Amara's smile never reached her eyes, but it held a quiet storm brewing in the space between accusation and truth. The fluorescent lights hummed, the officer's boots squeaked forward, and in that moment the store felt smaller, the shadows sharper, the weight of what came next hanging in the air like the smell of rain. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. The store falls into a heavy stillness as Calvin's hands tremble, rifling through Amara's bag. Gum wrappers, notebooks, and a worn-out hair tie spill onto the counter. Customers freeze, some pulling out phones, their lenses capturing the unfolding scene. Amara's breath remains steady, her eyes calm, contrasting sharply with Calvin's performative anger. A woman near the aisle shifts uncomfortably, glancing away, while a young man's fingers hover hesitantly over his phone screen. Calvin's voice breaks the quiet, grumbling, "Where's the rest?" His words hang, heavy with accusation, but Amara's reply is quiet and firm. "The rest is my business." The tension tightens, the air thick with unspoken judgments and the weight of systemic bias. Flashbacks flicker through Amara's mind, her mother's warnings echoing past moments of being followed in stores, teachers doubting her abilities. Each memory strengthens her resolve, her posture straightening despite the invasive search. The camera's red light blinks steadily as the teen near the chip aisle records silently. Calvin's hands shake more noticeably, his facade cracking, under the weight of the moment. The store's fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting a harsh glow on the scattered contents of the bag. Outside, rain taps relentlessly against the windows, mirroring the storm brewing inside. Amara's phone buzzes again, the screen lighting up with a message from Uncle D. She meets Calvin's gaze, lips curling into a faint, knowing smile, a quiet defiance amid the scrutiny. The door chimes softly as a police officer steps inside, water dripping from his hat. Calvin waves him over, relief flooding his features. The officer's eyes flick between Calvin and Amara, hesitation evident as he senses the tension thickening in the air. The scene closes on the unblinking camera light, the heavy pause before the next move and the quiet power held in Amara's steady breath. Calvin's fingers fumble for his phone, the device nearly slipping from his grip as he dials. His voice, usually measured, now carries an edge meant for the audience gathering behind the snack racks. "Yeah, I need an officer, suspected theft. She's still here." The words ring out, bouncing off the shelves, drawing more eyes. Amara stands unmoved, her gaze fixed on a spot just above Calvin's head, refusing to shrink under the scrutiny. A middle-aged woman whispers to her son, pulling him a step closer. A young man in a delivery uniform shifts his weight, glancing from Amara to Calvin, then back again, uncertainty etched across his features. The rain outside intensifies, drumming against the glass, amplifying every heartbeat in the room. Amara's phone vibrates in her palm. Uncle D flashes on the screen. She doesn't answer, but her thumb hovers over the message, a silent reminder of support waiting just beyond these walls. The officer at the door hesitates, his hand resting on his belt, eyes darting between Calvin and Amara. He clears his throat but says nothing, the moment stretching thin. Calvin's words grow louder, more theatrical, as he repeats details for the dispatcher. "No, she hasn't left. Yes, I checked her bag. No, nothing yet, but she's hiding something. I know it." The statement hangs, unsupported, as the officer's brow furrows, discomfort flickering across his face. A customer near the freezer section films, his phone angled low. Another quietly slips out, shaking her head as she passes the officer. The tension is palpable, every movement deliberate, every breath measured. Amara finally speaks, her voice steady and low. "You can check the cameras." The officer nods, almost grateful for the suggestion, and steps further inside. Calvin's bravado falters, his next words softer, less certain. The rain outside drowns out his reply, leaving only the quiet buzz of Amara's phone and the heavy expectation of what comes next. The door swings open with a gust of wind, scattering a few receipts across the floor. Mayor Deshaun Caldwell steps inside, his suit jacket soaked, umbrella dripping water onto the welcome mat. He pauses, eyes scanning the room, taking in the cluster of customers, the officer's uneasy posture, and Calvin's rigid stance behind the counter. Amara stands quietly, her shoulders squared, meeting her uncle's gaze with a flicker of relief. Calvin's confidence wavers as he recognizes the mayor. He attempts a smile, but it falters beneath Caldwell's unwavering stare. "Mayor Caldwell, I was just following up on a situation. She was acting suspicious." His words stumble, each one weaker than the last. The mayor doesn't respond right away. He closes his umbrella with a sharp snap and sets it aside, water pooling at his feet. A teenager by the magazine rack lowers his phone, watching the mayor with wide eyes. The officer shifts, clearing his throat, but remains silent. The customers sense the shift in authority. Some step back, others lean in, waiting to see what will unfold. Mayor Caldwell's voice is quiet but carries. "Is there a problem here?" His gaze never leaves Calvin, who fidgets with the hem of his apron, searching for justification. "It's just, store policy. We have to be careful." The mayor's expression hardens. Careful. With whom? The question hangs, heavy and unblinking. Amara's lips press together, her resolve growing. The officer glances at the mayor, then at Calvin, then at Amara, caught in the crossfire of expectation and truth. The room feels smaller, the air charged with anticipation. Calvin's bravado dissolves, replaced by a nervous shuffle. The mayor steps closer to Amara, his presence a shield. The crowd parts, making space for a reckoning that feels both overdue and inevitable. The only sound is the steady drip of rainwater from the mayor's umbrella, marking the slow unraveling of Calvin's control. A teenager huddled by the magazine rack taps his phone screen, uploading the video with trembling fingers. The footage Calvin's accusation. Amara's calm. The mayor's arrival spread through group chats and social feeds in minutes. Screens light up across town. Justice for Amara flashes on timelines, the hashtag gaining momentum as more voices join. In homes and cars, people watch the scene unfold, some in shock, others nodding grimly, recognizing a pattern they've seen before. Inside the store, Calvin glances at his own phone, his face blanching as notifications pile up. The officer's radio crackles, dispatch relaying that media inquiries have already started. A woman at the counter whispers to her friend, "It's everywhere now." The mayor stands beside Amara, his arm resting lightly on her shoulder, offering silent support as the atmosphere shifts. Customers trickle out, some pausing to give Amara a nod of respect, others avoiding Calvin's gaze entirely. The shelves, once bustling with activity, now seem abandoned. A supplier steps in, sees the tension, and quietly leaves a delivery slip on the counter before backing out. Calvin's hands hover over the register, unsure whether to ring up the next customer or lock the drawer for good. Amara's phone buzzes nonstop messages of support, solidarity, and outrage. She scrolls through them, her expression unreadable, but her posture is firm. The officer, no longer posturing, asks if anyone needs a statement. The mayor shakes his head. The world is watching now. Calvin tries to speak, but his words catch, lost beneath the weight of public scrutiny. As dusk settles outside, the store's neon sign flickers, casting a pale glow over empty aisles. The hashtag continues to trend, and the town's silence finally cracks. Collective shame giving way to accountability. Amara stands steady, her faint smile not of triumph, but of resolve. The system's cracks have widened, and nothing feels hidden anymore. Calvin's hands quiver as he reaches for Amara's backpack, the zipper catching before he manages to pull it open. The counter becomes a stage as he empties the contents: notebooks, a half-eaten granola bar, a faded library card. Each item lands with a soft thud, echoing in the uneasy quiet. Customers nearby stand motionless, their faces tense, some holding up phones to record, others exchanging uncertain glances. A young woman at the end of the aisle bites her lip, shifting her weight from foot to foot, while a man in work boots clears his throat but says nothing. Amara's posture never falters. She keeps her eyes on Calvin, not flinching as he rummages through her belongings. He mutters under his breath, "There's got to be more." The accusation lingers, but Amara's reply is measured. "That's everything." A child clings to his mother's hand, watching with wide eyes as the scene unfolds. The mother squeezes his fingers, her jaw set, but she doesn't speak up. The officer stands nearby, arms folded, gaze flicking between Calvin and Amara. He doesn't intervene, but his frown deepens with each passing second. The tension is thick, every movement deliberate, every sound amplified by the hush that has settled over the store. The fluorescent lights overhead buzz faintly, casting a sterile glow on the scattered contents. Calvin's search grows more frantic, his composure slipping. As he finds nothing incriminating, he glances at the customers, seeking validation, but finds only wary stares and a few raised eyebrows. Amara's phone vibrates again, the screen lighting up with another message from Uncle D. She meets Calvin's gaze, her lips pressed into a thin line of determination. As Calvin finally steps back, empty-handed, the crowd's quiet judgment hangs in the air. Amara calmly gathers her things, her dignity intact, while Calvin's authority feels smaller than ever. The store feels colder, the distance between accusation and truth now painfully clear. Calvin fumbles for his phone, nearly dropping it as he dials. His voice, once steady, is now pitched for the audience, loud and clipped. "Yeah, I need police at the store. Suspected theft. She's still here." The words hang, sharp and public, as heads turn. Amara stands quietly, her gaze fixed ahead, refusing to meet the stares that settle on her. The officer, already present, shifts his stance, glancing at Calvin with a flicker of irritation, but says nothing. A woman in a floral scarf whispers to her friend, "He's doing it again." The friend's eyes dart from Amara to Calvin, uncertainty creasing her brow. The rain outside intensifies, rattling the glass, making every word inside sound louder. Amara's phone vibrates in her hand. Uncle D flashes on the screen, but she doesn't move to answer, her thumb resting on the message icon. Calvin's tone grows more theatrical as he repeats himself for the dispatcher. No, she hasn't left. I checked her bag. She's hiding something, I know it. The officer's jaw tightens, his patience thinning. A teenager by the freezer section films, his phone angled low, capturing every word. Another customer quietly slips toward the exit, shaking her head as she passes the officer. Amara finally speaks, voice calm, but edged with exhaustion. You can check the cameras. The officer nods, almost relieved to have a solution that doesn't involve confrontation. Calvin's bravado falters, his next words softer, almost pleading. I just want to keep the store safe. The statement lands flat, no longer convincing anyone. The store's atmosphere is thick with judgment, every breath measured, every movement deliberate. Amara's phone buzzes again, the sound sharp in the quiet. The officer steps away to review the footage, leaving Calvin standing awkwardly, his authority slipping as the room waits for the truth to surface. The door swings open with a rush of cold air, scattering receipts across the floor. Mayor Deshaun Caldwell steps inside, rainwater dripping from his umbrella. He surveys the room. Calvin by the counter, tense and pale, Amara standing tall, her belongings neatly packed, the officer reviewing footage, customers clustered in uneasy silence. The mayor's presence shifts the atmosphere, drawing every eye. Calvin straightens, attempting a smile that falters beneath the mayor's steady gaze. Mayor Caldwell, I was just following up on a situation. She was acting suspicious. His words lack conviction, each syllable weaker than the last. The mayor doesn't respond immediately. He closes his umbrella, water pooling at his feet, and sets it aside with deliberate care. A teenage girl near the snack aisle lowers her phone, watching the mayor with cautious hope. The officer clears his throat, glancing between Calvin and Amara, but remains silent. The customers sense the change in authority. Some step back, others edge closer, anticipation building. The mayor's voice is calm, but carries weight. Is there a problem here? His eyes never leave Calvin, who fidgets with his apron, searching for justification. It's just, standard practice. We have to be careful. The mayor's expression hardens. Careful with whom? The question lands with force, the room tightening around it. Amara's lips press together, her resolve visible. The officer glances at the mayor, then at Calvin, caught between expectation and truth. The store feels smaller, the air charged with something unspoken. Calvin's confidence dissolves, replaced by a nervous shuffle. The mayor steps closer to Amara, his presence a shield. The crowd parts, making space for a reckoning that feels both overdue and necessary. The only sound is the steady drip of rain from the mayor's umbrella, marking the slow unraveling of Calvin's control. Amara stands in the store, Calvin's accusation still ringing in her ears, but her mind drifts to her mother's voice from years ago. Keep receipts, baby. Always. She remembers standing at a bus stop as a child, her mother's hand wrapped firmly around hers. The bus doors opened and the driver's eyes lingered on them a moment too long, suspicion unspoken but felt. Amara's mother pressed a faded receipt into her palm, whispering, just in case. That memory sharpens her resolve now. The scene shifts in her mind. A mall security guard trailing her through the aisles, his walkie-talkie crackling as he pretends to browse. She remembers the sting of being watched, the way her mother's back would stiffen, her voice calm but clipped as she asked, "Is there a problem?" The guard would look away, never answering, but never leaving either. A classroom flickers into view. Amara sits at her desk, pencil poised, while her teacher reads out test scores. The teacher's eyes pause on Amara's name, doubting the high mark beside it. "Did you have help with this?" the teacher asks, voice too sweet, suspicion barely, masked. Amara's cheeks burn, but she meets the teacher's gaze, unflinching. Back in the present, the weight of these memories settles into Amara's posture. Calvin's search, the officer's hesitation, the customer's stares. They're all echoes of what she's lived before. But each memory is a layer of armor, making her stand taller, her voice steadier. She glances at her phone, the message from Uncle D, a silent reminder that she's not alone. The store's fluorescent lights flicker overhead, but Amara's focus sharpens. Every humiliation, every doubt, every whispered warning from her mother has prepared her for this moment. She breathes in, shoulders square, ready for whatever comes next. A folded yellowed piece of paper sits wedged behind the register, nearly forgotten until a customer knocks it loose while reaching for change. Calvin snatches it up, intending to toss it, but the handwriting catches his eye. The words are uneven, written in blue ink. "I can't do this anymore." He hesitates, glancing at Amara, then unfolds the letter. The janitor's resignation, dated months ago, spills out across the page. "He accused me too. Said I was always hanging around the aisles. I cleaned those floors for 15 years, never once took a thing." The customers nearby notice Calvin's pause. A middle-aged man at the counter leans in, reading over his shoulder. "That's old Mr. Harris's writing," he murmurs, voice tinged with disbelief. A young woman, arms crossed, asks quietly, "He left because of this?" Calvin's mouth opens, but no words come out. The officer, still reviewing footage, glances over, catching the exchange. He doesn't speak, but his frown deepens. Amara watches, silent, as Calvin's grip tightens on the letter. The words on the page are a mirror for the moment unfolding now. "Black customers watched, white ones waved through." The letter continues. "I asked him once, 'Why me?' He said it was just the way things are." The room grows heavier, the unspoken truth settling in the space between every person present. A teenager filming from the snack aisle lowers her phone, her expression shifting from curiosity to understanding. The janitor's resignation is no longer just a personal note. It's evidence, a red flag ignored by everyone until now. Calvin's face flushes, his usual composure slipping as he folds the letter and sets it aside, hands trembling. The customers exchange glances, some ashamed, some angry. The officer returns the footage device to the counter, his demeanor changed. The letter lingers on the counter, a quiet indictment, its presence making it impossible for anyone to pretend this is just another misunderstanding. The officer's hand rests on his belt as he stands between Calvin and Amara, the badge on his chest catching the harsh light. He's reviewed the footage, listened to the murmurs, and now the weight of the moment presses down on him. His eyes shift from Calvin's flushed face to Amara's steady posture, then to the letter still sitting. On the counter, he inhales, the breath slow and uncertain, as if hoping for a script that doesn't exist. A mother holding her son's hand watches the officer, her expression pleading for fairness. The boy squeezes her fingers, sensing the tension. The officer's partner, standing near the door, clears his throat and glances away, uncomfortable with the spotlight. The customers, once eager for drama, now wait in uneasy quiet, their curiosity replaced by the hope that someone will finally do the right thing. Calvin tries to fill the space, voice brittle. "You saw it. She was acting suspicious. I was just doing what I'm supposed to." The officer doesn't answer right away. He looks at the resignation letter, the words, "I can't do this anymore," echoing in his mind. He remembers other calls, other faces, other moments where he'd chosen the easy path. Amara's eyes meet his, unwavering. She doesn't plead or explain. The officer feels the burden of his uniform, the responsibility to see what's truly in front of him. He exhales, a quiet sound, and finally speaks. "I'll need a statement from everyone here." His voice is steady, but the uncertainty lingers. A teenager by the window nods, ready to share her video. The mother lets out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Calvin looks away, jaw clenched, realizing the tide has turned. The officer's Pause is more than hesitation. It's a reckoning with the unseen burdens he's carried and a choice not to look away this time. The officer plugs the flash drive into the small television behind the counter, the screen flickering to life. The grainy footage fills the room with a blue glow. Everyone's attention narrows to the moving images, Amara entering, her steps measured, her hands visible at all times. Calvin stands off to the side, arms folded, watching her every move. The recording is silent, but the tension in the room is mirrored in every frame. A hush settles as the video plays. The camera shows Amara picking up a candy bar, examining the wrapper, then placing it back on the shelf. She moves down the aisle, never pocketing a thing. Calvin's accusations echo in the minds of those watching, now exposed by the unblinking camera. The officer's eyes flick to Calvin, who shifts his weight, face paling as the evidence mounts. A young man near the magazine rack whispers, "She didn't take anything." The mother by the door nods, relief and vindication mingling in her expression. Calvin's composure unravels. His fingers drum nervously against the counter, a far cry from his earlier bravado. The officer rewinds, playing the crucial moments, again, each replay tightening the grip of truth. Amara stands quietly, her gaze fixed on the screen, not on Calvin. She doesn't gloat or smirk. Her dignity is unshaken, even as the room's energy shifts. The customers exchange glances, the narrative they were fed dissolving in real time. The teenager with the phone lowers her device, no longer needing to. The truth is undeniable. The officer finally speaks, his tone even. "There's nothing here. She didn't steal." The statement lands with finality, the last piece of doubt erased. Calvin's shoulders slump, his authority shrinking in the harsh light of the monitor. Amara gathers her things, her calm presence, a quiet answer to every accusation that's ever followed her. A teenager stands near the end of the snack aisle, phone in hand, thumbs moving quickly over the screen. The video she captured, Calvin's accusation, Amara's calm, the mayor's entrance uploads in seconds. She adds a caption, "Small town, big problem. Justice for Amara." Within minutes, notifications flood in. The hashtag appears on feeds across the community, then spreads further, picked up by friends, classmates, and strangers who recognize the pattern. Inside the store, Calvin's phone vibrates relentlessly. He glances at the screen, his face tightening, as he sees his own actions replayed, dissected, and condemned. The officer's partner checks his own device, eyebrows rising at the sudden spike in attention. A young man by the freezer section shows his screen to a friend, both shaking their heads in disbelief. Amara's phone buzzes with messages, some from classmates, others from people she's never met, all offering support or outrage. She reads. A few, her expression steady, but her hand trembles slightly before she slips the phone back into her pocket. The mayor stands quietly beside her, nodding at the teen who posted the video, a silent acknowledgement of the power in her small act. The store's shelves, once busy with customers, now stand mostly empty. A supplier enters, sees the uneasy crowd, and leaves a delivery slip without a word. Calvin looks out at the thinning group, realizing the impact of a single moment broadcast to thousands. The customers who remain avoid his gaze, some whispering, others simply walking out. The hashtag continues to climb, drawing attention from local news and advocacy groups. The store's neon sign flickers outside, casting a pale glow over the deserted parking lot. Amara stands at the center of it all, not triumphant, but resolute. The community's silence has been broken, replaced by a chorus demanding change. The shelves gather dust, a quiet testament to what happens when truth is finally seen. A phone rings in the background, its tone sharp against the subdued murmurs in the store. The officer answers, then holds the receiver out, speaker mode engaged. A woman's voice crackles through, strained and angry. "This is Mrs. Harris. My son stopped here last month. You said he looked suspicious. He was 12. He cried the whole way home." The words cut through the room, drawing every eye to the counter. Calvin's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. The officer glances at him, then at Amara, who stands, motionless, jaw set. The mother's voice continues, rising with each sentence. "You told me it was just how things are done. You never apologized. You never even looked at him." Her pain is raw, her accusation impossible to ignore. A woman, near the window, wipes her eyes. The teenager who posted the video lowers her phone, the reality of the moment settling in. The mayor listens, hands folded, his expression grave. The officer's partner shifts his stance, uncomfortable with the truth laid bare for everyone to hear. Calvin tries to defend himself, voice thin. "We have to be careful. It's not personal." The excuse falls flat, no one willing to accept it now. The mother's voice, distant but unwavering, delivers the final blow. "You made my son afraid to come here. You made us all feel unwelcome." The call ends, but the impact lingers. Customers exchange glances, some shaking their heads, others looking away. The officer sets the phone down, his decision clear. The system's cracks are no longer hidden, they're on display, undeniable and urgent. Amara breathes in, her resolve strengthened. The store feels different now, the weight of every past injustice pressing against the walls. The voicemail has done what no argument could. It has made the truth impossible to ignore. The next morning, Calvin steps outside his front door, the air heavy with a tension he can't shake. He waves at a neighbor across the street, but she quickly looks away, guiding her child to the opposite sidewalk. Another neighbor, usually chatty, keeps his gaze fixed on his garden, headphones in, pretending not to notice Calvin's presence. The mail carrier hesitates before dropping letters in Calvin's box, offering only a curt nod before moving on. Calvin stands on his porch, coffee cooling in his hand, watching as familiar faces avoid his eyes. The street, once filled with friendly greetings and casual conversation, now feels colder, every interaction clipped or absent. A woman walks her dog past his house, her steps quickening as she passes, her expression unreadable. The sense of community that once comforted him has evaporated, replaced by a wall of quiet disapproval. At the corner store, Calvin's former customers now line up at the new black-owned shop down the block. A man in a blue jacket mutters to his friend, "People remember." The friend nods, glancing back at Calvin's empty storefront. The message is clear even without words. Actions have consequences, and the town has chosen to move on. Calvin lingers by his window, watching the flow of life that now seems to bypass him entirely. The laughter of children, the hum of conversation, all drift past his house without pause. He feels the sting of exclusion, the coldness of being quietly set apart. As dusk falls, Calvin sits in his living room, the silence pressing in. He hears footsteps on the sidewalk, a low exchange of voices, but no one stops at his door. The world outside has shifted, and he is left to reckon with the distance his own choices have created. Rows of folding chairs fill the council chamber, every seat taken, the air thick with expectation. Calvin sits at the front, hands clasped tightly, a sheen of sweat on his brow. Microphones line the table, red lights blinking as council members shuffle papers and clear their throats. The mayor sits beside Amara, his expression unreadable, while townspeople whisper in hushed tones behind them. A councilwoman adjusts her glasses, then speaks, her voice steady. "We've received complaints. Mr. Mercer, not just one, years of them." She holds up a folder, its corners frayed from use. Calvin's jaw tightens. I didn't know it was her," he stammers, glancing at Amara, who meets his gaze without blinking. The room is silent, every word amplified by the tension. Another council member leans forward, voice cool. "Should that matter?" Calvin's mouth opens, then closes, no answer forming. The officer from the store sits in the back, eyes fixed on the floor, his badge dull in the overhead light. A woman in the audience shakes her head, disappointment etched across her face. The councilwoman continues, reading from the folder. stopped without cause, watched without reason, made me feel unwelcome. Each phrase lands like a stone, the weight of accumulated stories settling over the room. Calvin's shoulders slump, his composure unraveling as the evidence mounts. Amara sits upright, hands folded in her lap. She listens, her presence calm, unyielding. The mayor glances at her, nodding once in quiet support. A teenager records the proceedings, her phone steady, capturing every moment for those who couldn't attend. Calvin's voice cracks as he tries to defend himself, but the words falter. The council's verdict is clear even before it's spoken. The community's patience has worn thin, and the old excuses no longer hold. The meeting ends not with shouting, but with a heavy final pause that signals a new chapter for the town. Amara stands by the riverbank as the late afternoon sun glints off the water's surface. Her shoes sink slightly into the damp earth, but she doesn't mind. In her hand, a smooth stone rests cool against her palm. She draws in a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past week settle, and then slowly lift with the breeze. The voices from the council meeting echo faintly in her memory, accusations, confessions, the final, loaded silence. She lets them drift. Away as she crouches, eyes focused on the gentle current. A child's laughter carries from the nearby park. Amara glances over, a small smile tugging at her lips. She pulls her arm back and skips the stone across the water, watching it leap and ripple outward. Each bounce feels like a release, a quiet declaration that her story will not be defined by suspicion or shame. Her phone vibrates in her pocket, messages from classmates, neighbors, even strangers, all offering support or thanks. She reads a few, then tucks the phone away, choosing the peace of this moment over the noise of the world. The mayor's words from the meeting return to her. This isn't just about one mistake, it's about who we choose to be. She stands taller, letting those words settle in her chest. A breeze stirs the reeds. Amara closes her eyes, remembering her mother's voice. "Keep your head up, baby." She opens them again, gaze steady, watching the sun's reflection dance on the water. The pain and humiliation are still there, but so is her dignity, untouched, unbroken. She picks up another stone, feeling its weight, then lets it fly. The ripples widen, reaching the far shore. Amara whispers, "They'll remember, not just what happened, but who I am." The river carries her words forward, a promise and a hope, as the day drifts gently into evening. The town hall swells with bodies and anticipation, every seat taken, the aisles crowded with people standing shoulder to shoulder. The air is thick, almost humid, with the collective breath of a community that has come not just to witness, but to reckon. Wooden walls, usually echoing with polite applause or civic routine, now bounce back the restless shifting of feet. The low hum of whispered names and unfinished sentences. Neighbors who have lived on the same street for decades avoid each other's eyes, while others stare openly, searching for allies or adversaries in the faces around them. A child fidgets in his mother's lap, sensing the tension even if he doesn't understand it. The mayor sits at the front, posture straight, hands folded tightly, his niece Amara beside him, her chin lifted in quiet defiance. Calvin, isolated near the front row, wipes his brow with a handkerchief, glancing nervously at the exits. Council members sort through folders, their expressions a mix of fatigue and wariness, as if bracing for a storm. The fluorescent lights overhead cast a cold, unwavering glow on the crowd, making every anxious gesture and sidelong glance more visible. A teacher from the local school sits near the back, notebook open but pen unmoving, her focus fixed on the tension unfolding. A teenager holds up her phone, recording the scene, her hands steady but her eyes wide with uncertainty. As the doors close with a dull thud, the room quiet, the usual small talk replaced by an unspoken agreement. Tonight, nothing will be ignored. The silence is not empty. It is packed with old grievances, buried stories, and the hope that something real might finally shift. Every cough, every shuffle, Every clearing of a throat feels amplified, as if the building itself is waiting to exhale. In this charged, crowded space, the town's conscience is exposed, and everyone present understands that what happens tonight will not be easily forgotten. Mayor Caldwell rises from his seat with deliberate calm, the room's restless energy seeming to pause as he straightens his jacket and surveys the crowd. His presence commands attention, not through volume but through the quiet certainty in his movements. He places both hands on the table before him, waiting for the last cough and shuffle to subside. When he speaks, his voice is measured, steady, carrying to the farthest corners of the hall without strain. "We are here tonight not just for my niece, but for every voice that has gone unheard in this town," he begins, his gaze sweeping from the front row to the standing room-only crowd at the back. He does not raise his voice, but each word is weighted, deliberate, as if he is laying bricks for a foundation that cannot be shaken. This is not about one mistake. It is about the patterns we have allowed to continue, the stories we have let slip by because they were uncomfortable, or inconvenient, or did not fit the image we wanted to see. He pauses, letting the words settle, watching as heads nod, as some avert their eyes, as others sit up a little straighter. A council member fidgets with a stack of papers, the sound sharp in the stillness. Amara glances at her uncle, her expression a mix of pride and relief. Calvin shifts in his seat, jaw clenched, the mayor's calm authority making his earlier bravado seem hollow. The mayor continues, "We cannot change what we refuse to confront. Tonight, we confront it together." His words ripple through the crowd, a subtle but unmistakable shift in the room's mood. The usual defensive shrugs, sighs, dismissive glances are replaced by the heavy attention of people who know they are being called to account. The mayor's final words hang in the air. Let's listen. Let's be honest. Let's begin. The storm outside rattles the windows, but inside the real reckoning has just started. Calvin rises from his seat, wiping his palms on his trousers before approaching the microphone. The lights overhead seem harsher now, illuminating the sheen of sweat on his forehead. He clears his throat twice, searching for words that will steady his nerves. The crowd's attention is absolute, every face turned toward him, some expectant, others already skeptical. His voice when it comes is thin and shaky. I just want to say I never meant for any of this to happen. I was just doing what I thought was right for my store, for everyone's safety." He glances at the council, hoping for a sympathetic nod, but finds only blank stares. A woman in the third row folds her arms, her eyes narrowing. Calvin's gaze darts to Amara, who meets it without flinching. He looks away quickly, his composure slipping. "There have been incidents before," he continues, voice faltering, "and I have to look out for my business. That's all I was, or trying to do." His words land flat, met by a wave of quiet disapproval. A man near the back coughs, the sound sharp in the silence. Calvin's hands grip the podium tighter, knuckles whitening. "I didn't know she was the mayor's niece," he blurts, as if this might excuse his actions. The mayor's face remains impassive, but a ripple of murmurs moves through the room. Calvin's privilege, once a shield, now feels like a weight dragging him down. He tries to recover, voice growing desperate. "I'm not a bad person. I just followed the rules." The councilwoman's pen taps against her notepad, each click a reminder of the mounting evidence against him. Calvin's words grow softer, trailing off as he realizes he is alone at the microphone, the ground beneath him shifting with every second of the crowd's heavy, silent judgment. A hush settles over the hall as an elderly man rises slowly from the second row, leaning on a polished cane. His suit is pressed, his eyes sharp behind thick glasses. He doesn't rush. The weight of his years gives his movements a quiet authority. The room's attention shifts, curiosity and respect mingling in the air. He clears his throat, voice soft but unwavering. "Who are you protecting, Mr. Mercer?" he asks, the question cutting through the room like a blade. Calvin's mouth opens, but no answer comes. The elder's gaze is steady, his presence a living reminder of battles fought long before this night. Around the room, memories flicker in the faces of those who have lived through decades of slights and suspicion. A woman in the back dabs her eyes, recalling her own stories of being watched, doubted, dismissed. The mayor nods slightly, recognizing the elder's dignity and the pain behind his words. The silence after the question is thick, stretching out as Calvin shifts uncomfortably. I was just doing my job," he finally stammers. But the words sound hollow, stripped of conviction. The elder doesn't look away. "Your job?" he repeats, "or your habit?" The crowd stirs, the distinction hanging in the air, impossible to ignore. A teenager records, her phone trembling slightly as she captures the moment. The council members exchange glances, realizing the question is bigger than Calvin alone. It is about a pattern, a history, a wound that never healed. The elder's voice, though quiet, carries the weight of many voices, many histories, all demanding to be acknowledged. Calvin's shoulders slump, his defense crumbling. The hall holds, its breath, the elder's dignity reflecting the town's collective shame. In this moment, the past and present collide, and everyone feels the burden of truths too long left unspoken. A councilwoman with silver hair and a measured gaze stands, lifting a thick folder from the table. The room quiets as she opens it, revealing page after page of handwritten notes, formal complaints, and faded emails. She reads aloud, her voice clear and unwavering. "Stopped without cause. Watched every time I entered. Told I looked out of place." Each account is a story of suspicion, of being made to feel unwelcome, of dignity chipped away over years. She pauses between statements, letting the weight of each settle over the crowd. The mayor sits motionless, jaw set, while Amara's eyes glisten, but she does not look away. Calvin's face drains of color as the councilwoman continues, "Ignored when I asked for help, told to leave without reason, accused of things I never did." The evidence is overwhelming, a chorus of voices that can no longer be dismissed. A teacher in the audience closes her eyes, remembering her own uneasy encounters. A man in the back clenches his fists, anger flickering across his features. The councilwoman's gaze never wavers from Calvin. "These are not isolated incidents, Mr. Mercer. This is a pattern. This is the system we have allowed to stand." Calvin tries to interject, but his words are lost in the tide of testimony. The councilwoman's tone sharpens. "You have been warned. You have been told." And still, it continued. She snaps the folder shut, the sound echoing through the hall like a gavel. The crowd's mood shifts. What was once whispered in private is now undeniable in public. Amara sits taller, the truth of her experience finally spoken aloud. The councilwoman's final words hang in the air. "We cannot claim ignorance any longer." Calvin stands alone in the glare, the evidence of years laid bare for all to see. Calvin's hands tremble as he clings to the edge of the podium, the councilwoman's words still ringing in his ears. His gaze drops to the floor, unable to meet the eyes of anyone in the room. The folder of complaints sits in plain sight, its presence a silent judgment. The murmurs in the hall grow into a low wave of disapproval, rolling from row to row, each face turned away from Calvin with a mixture of disappointment and quiet anger. He tries to speak, but his voice catches, the words refusing to form. I didn't," he stammers, but the excuses sound empty even to him. A man in the second row shakes his head, arms crossed tightly, while a woman near the aisle whispers to her neighbor, "It's about time." The mayor remains still, his expression grave, while Amara sits upright, her calm gaze never wavering. Calvin's shoulders sag, the weight of consequence settling over him like a heavy blanket. The authority he once wielded so easily is gone, replaced by a sense of isolation that deepens with every second. He looks to the council for support but finds only stern faces and averted eyes. The teacher who once greeted him at the store now stares at the floor, unwilling to offer comfort. The councilwoman closes her folder with finality, signaling the end of Calvin's defense. The silence that follows is not empty, but full of meaning, the collective decision that the time for excuses has passed. Calvin's composure unravels, his breaths coming shallow and quick. He steps back from the podium, hands shaking as the reality of his actions and their impact settles in. No one speaks as he returns to his seat. The collapse is not dramatic, but it is complete. Calvin's authority dissolves, replaced by a heavy, irreversible quiet, and the hall moves forward without him. Amara sits near the front, her back straight, shoulders relaxed, hands folded in her lap. The council's verdict still hangs in the air, but she does not shrink beneath the weight of so many eyes. Instead, she lifts her chin, her gaze sweeping the room with quiet steadiness. Some in the crowd look away, unable to meet her eyes, while others hold her gaze for a moment, their expressions shifting from discomfort to something like respect. She does not speak. Her silence is not submission, but a calm refusal to let anger or bitterness define her. The mayor glances at her, pride flickering across his face before he looks down, giving her the space to own this moment herself. A teacher in the audience wipes her eyes, moved by the strength in Amara's posture. The teenager with the phone lowers her camera, realizing that no video can truly capture the dignity radiating from the young woman at the center of the room. Calvin, slumped in his chair, risks a glance at Amara. She meets his eyes, not with triumph, but with a level, unbroken stare that says more than words ever could. He looks away, chastened, the gap between them now insurmountable. The councilwoman who read the complaints nods once, acknowledging Amara's courage, without fanfare. A hush settles, the kind that follows a storm, as the crowd absorbs the lesson in Amara's stillness. She is not just a victim or a symbol. She is a person who has endured, who has chosen to stand tall in the face of injustice. In that moment, her dignity becomes the room's center of gravity, drawing others to sit a little straighter, to reconsider what strength looks like. As the meeting continues, Amara's presence lingers, a quiet reminder that true power does not always need to speak to be heard. Neighbors who once greeted Calvin with easy smiles now avoid his gaze, their postures stiff as they shift in their seats. A few, who used to frequent his store, quietly cross the aisle to sit closer to Amara's family. The gesture is small, but it carries the weight of a public reckoning. Whispers ripple through the hall, not of accusation but of support. Soft words of encouragement, a gentle hand on a shoulder, a nod from across the room. A mother leans over to her daughter, murmuring, "That took courage." The daughter nods, her eyes fixed on Amara, admiration clear in her expression. An older man, who once stood in line at Calvin's counter every Saturday, now sits with arms folded, his attention turned away from Calvin, his loyalty quietly shifting. The mayor notices the subtle movement, the way the crowd's energy has changed. He exchanges a glance with the councilwoman, both recognizing that the tide has turned not with shouts, but with the soft, deliberate actions of people choosing where to stand. Calvin senses the distance growing, the coldness not just in words, but in the way people angle their bodies away from him. He tries to catch the eye of an old friend, but the friend looks past him, focusing instead on the proceedings. The silence around Calvin is not empty. It is filled with the decision of a community beginning to wake up, to realign itself with justice, even if only in small, cautious steps. Amara's family feels the shift, too. Her mother offers a grateful smile to those who have moved closer, her father squeezing her hand in quiet pride. The meeting continues, but the balance of the room has changed. The old order is fading, replaced by a new sense of solidarity, one not announced, but felt in every quiet gesture and every seat that has been chosen anew. Mayor Caldwell rises once more, the room growing still as he steps forward, his shoes quiet on the polished floor. He surveys the hall, taking in the faces, some tearful, some resolute, all changed by what has unfolded. His voice is gentle but unwavering, each word deliberate. This isn't just about one mistake. He begins, his gaze resting on Calvin, then moving to Amara, and finally sweeping the crowd. It's about who we choose to be, not just tonight, but every day after this. He pauses, letting the words ripple through the hall. The council members listen, pens set aside, their attention undivided. We have heard the truth. He continues. We have seen the cost of looking away, of letting old habits go unchallenged. We cannot go back to pretending we don't know. A hush follows, the weight of honesty settling over everyone present. A woman in the third row nods, wiping a tear from her cheek. A teenage boy, phone forgotten in his hand, sits up straighter, as if the mayor's words are meant for him alone. The councilwoman who read the complaints folds her hands, her expression softened by relief and resolve. Amara's family exchanges quiet glances, a sense of hope flickering between them. Calvin sits motionless, head bowed, the finality of the moment pressing down on him. The mayor's voice carries through the hall, not as a rebuke, but as a call to conscience. Let's not let this be the end. Let it be the beginning of something better. His words echo, lingering long after he sits down. The meeting draws to a close, but the truth remains woven into the fabric of the community. For the first time, the town feels the weight and the promise of real change. The silence that follows is full, not empty, a sign that everyone has heard and understood. As the meeting ends, the crowd slowly files out of the hall, the night air cool and still. Amara walks beside her uncle, the mayor, their steps measured and unhurried. Streetlights cast long, wavering shadows on the sidewalk, stretching behind them like memories that refuse to fade. Amara's head is high, her posture unbowed, every step a quiet declaration that she will not be defined by the accusations or the doubts that once trailed her. Neighbors linger on porches or behind curtains, watching as she passes. Some nod in respect. Others avert their eyes, ashamed or uncertain. A few children play quietly nearby, their laughter softening the edge of the night. Amara's mother and father walk a few paces behind, their pride visible in the way they hold each other's hands. The family's unity is a silent answer to every slight and every suspicion they have weathered. The mayor glances at Amara, offering a small, reassuring smile. "You did well tonight," he says quietly, his voice carrying the warmth of both family and leadership. Amara nods, her eyes forward, the weight of the evening settling into something lighter, more bearable. The street, once a place of unease, now feels transformed by what has happened inside the hall. As they turn the corner toward home, the old order seems to recede with every step. The shadows grow softer, the night less threatening. Amara breathes deeply, feeling the tension of the day finally begin to leave her body. She glances back once, seeing the town hall illuminated behind her, a beacon in the darkness, proof that change is possible. With each stride, Amara steps into a future shaped by dignity and awakening. The town watches, some inspired, some chastened, all changed. The journey home is more than a walk through quiet streets. It is the first step into a new story, one where she leads with her head high and her spirit unbroken. Calvin sits alone at a corner table in the coffee shop, his cup of coffee untouched, growing cold by the minute. The usual morning bustle fills the space. Baristas call out orders, the espresso machine hisses, chairs scrape against the tile. But no one glances his way. He scrolls through his phone, the glow of the screen reflecting in his tired eyes. News stories about new store policies and diversity training flood his feed, each headline a fresh reminder of what he's lost and why. He tries to focus on the crossword puzzle beside his cup, but the words blur. A group of regulars laughs at a nearby table, their conversation lively, but their backs turned to him. The barista, who once greeted him warmly, now simply wipes the counter, eyes fixed on her task. Calvin shifts in his seat, feeling the weight of their quiet verdict. He checks his messages. None from friends, only automated notifications and a single curt email from a supplier ending their business relationship. He looks up, hoping for a familiar face, but the few who meet his gaze quickly look away. A young man in a hoodie glances at Calvin, then leans in to whisper something to his companion. Calvin's cheeks flush, and he lowers his eyes, pretending to read the news on his phone. Each article seems to echo the same story. The town is moving on, and he is no longer part of its daily rhythm. Outside, people pass the window, some pausing to check their phones, others laughing together as they head to work. Calvin watches them, a spectator in a world that now feels distant. The silence around him is thick, not from lack of noise, but from the absence of connection. He stirs his coffee, but the bitterness lingers. The shop is full, but Calvin has never felt more alone. Calvin steps out of the coffee shop the morning, sun sharp against his face. He pauses on the sidewalk, hoping for a nod or a wave from the neighbors he's known for years. Instead, he watches as Mrs. Jenkins, who once brought him homemade cookies, crosses the street with her grocery bag, her gaze fixed on the pavement. Two teenagers approach, their laughter fading as they spot him. They exchange a look, then step off the curb, choosing to walk on the opposite side rather than pass him by. A delivery driver slows his van, recognizing Calvin, but offers only a stiff nod before accelerating away. The mail carrier, usually chatty, drops letters into Calvin's box without a word, hurrying on to the next house. Calvin stands awkwardly, clutching his coffee, feeling the chill of isolation even as the day warms around him. He tries to catch the eye of Mr. Patel, who is watering his garden across the street. Mr. Patel glances up, hesitates, then turns his attention back to the flowers. A mother walking her child to school quickens her pace as she nears Calvin's driveway, her hand tightening on her son's shoulder. The boy looks back, curiosity in his eyes, but his mother gently steers him away. Calvin's footsteps echo as he heads home, the street that once felt familiar now marked by invisible boundaries. Each encounter, or lack thereof, is a reminder that the community's judgment is quiet but absolute. The warmth and routine of neighborly small talk have vanished, replaced by brief, uncomfortable silences and averted eyes. He lingers on his porch, watching as life continues around him, everyone moving forward, together but apart from him. The sting of exclusion settles deeper than any argument or public scolding. Calvin sips his coffee, but it's gone cold, the bitterness matching the ache in his chest. The old store on Main Street has changed hands, its faded sign replaced with fresh paint and bright lettering. Calvin stands across the road, watching, as the new owner, a young black woman in a crisp apron, unlocks the door and props it open. She greets each customer with a genuine smile, her energy warm and inviting. People who once hurried past now pause, drawn in by the cheerful display in the window and the laughter that drifts from inside. A mother and her daughter step through the door, welcomed with a friendly wave. The girl points at a jar of candy on the counter, and the owner bends down to chat with her, listening intently. An elderly man who avoided the store for years enters with a tentative step. The owner recognizes him, offers him a seat by the window, and asks about his day. He smiles, settling in as if he's finally come home. Calvin watches as more neighbors file in, some carrying flowers, others bringing cards or small gifts. The atmosphere inside is light, conversations flowing easily. The shop feels transformed, the tension and suspicion that once hung in the air replaced by comfort and belonging. Through the glass, Calvin sees the owner ring up purchases, her hands steady, her laughter genuine. She thanks each customer by name, making a point to remember their stories. A group of teenagers lingers near the counter, chatting with the owner about school and weekend plans. She listens, encouraging them, her words kind and affirming. Outside, Calvin feels the distance between himself and the life he once knew. The store that was his is now a place of welcome, a symbol of what can change when a community chooses inclusion over fear. As the sun sets, the new owner stands at the door, waving goodbye to her last customer. Calvin turns away, the sound of laughter and connection echoing behind him, a reminder that a fresh start, in the right hands, can heal what was broken. At Town Hall, the council gathers around a long wooden table, stacks of documents neatly arranged before them. The room is quieter than usual, the gravity of the moment settling over everyone present. Council members review the final draft of the new anti-discrimination policy, their pens poised, eyes scanning the language one last time. The mayor sits. At the head, his expression determined yet hopeful, aware of the significance this decision holds for the entire community. One by one, each council member signs the policy, the scratch of pen on paper echoing in the stillness. The photographer from the local paper snaps a photo, capturing the moment for the front page. Posters are quickly distributed to business owners. All are welcome. Shopkeepers tape them to their windows, some with pride, others with a touch of nervousness, but all understanding that something fundamental has shifted. Outside, residents gather in small groups, reading the new signs and discussing what they mean. A teacher explains the change to her students, pointing to the poster and reminding them why respect matters. A local pastor offers a quiet prayer of thanks on the courthouse steps, his congregation gathered around him in support. Amara, standing with her family, watches as the first poster goes up in the window of the store that once turned her away. Her mother squeezes her hand, and her father nods, pride in his eyes. The new owner of the shop steps outside to greet them, her welcome sincere and warm. Calvin, passing by on the opposite sidewalk, pauses to read the sign. He lingers for a moment, then moves on, the impact of the change settling in. The policy is more than words on paper. It is a promise, a safeguard, a new standard for how the town will treat its people. As the sun sets, the posters catch the fading light, their message clear and unwavering. The community's slow awakening is now visible, a commitment made public, a future redefined by the courage to change. At the local youth center, Amara sits in a circle of folding chairs, surrounded by children and teens whose eyes are wide with curiosity and admiration. She shares her story not with anger, but with calm honesty, describing what it felt like to stand up for herself and her community. Her words are steady, her tone gentle, but the impact is unmistakable. The kids listen, some leaning forward, others hugging their knees, each one hearing something personal in her experience. A boy with a nervous stutter asks, "Were you scared?" Amara nods, offering him a reassuring smile. "Of course I was. But sometimes being brave isn't about not being afraid. It's about speaking up anyway." A girl in the back raises her hand, voice quiet. "How did you know you could do it?" Amara glances at her, remembering her mother's advice, and replies, "Because I knew the truth mattered, and I knew I wasn't alone." The youth center director, a woman with kind eyes, watches the exchange with pride. She offers Amara a cup of tea, thanking her for showing the younger generation what resilience looks like. "You're making a difference," she says softly. Amara shrugs, a little embarrassed, but her smile lingers. After the session, a group of kids gathers around her, asking more questions, sharing their own stories of feeling left out or misunderstood. Amara listens to each one, encouraging them to believe in their worth and to support each other. Her presence plants seeds of hope, her example showing that courage can be quiet and that change often begins with a single voice. As the afternoon sun streams through the windows, the room feels lighter, the children's laughter growing louder. Amara glances at the posters on the wall. All are welcome, and feels a sense of peace. She knows the future will be shaped by these moments, by the stories shared, and by the next generation learning to stand tall. Mayor Caldwell stands at his office window as dusk settles over the town, the golden light casting long shadows across his desk. He watches neighbors walk home, children playing on the green, and the new "All Are Welcome" posters in shop windows catching the last rays of sunlight. The day's events replay in his mind, the packed hall, the council's signatures, Amara's quiet strength. He feels a deep sense of relief, knowing the town has finally taken a step toward justice, but the feeling is tempered by the weight of responsibility that now rests on his shoulders. He turns from the window, glancing at a stack of letters on his desk, some congratulatory, others critical. He reads a few lines, absorbing both praise and skepticism. The mayor knows that real change is not secured with a single policy or a single meeting. It will require vigilance, patience, and a willingness to confront discomfort again and again. He sits down, rubbing his temples, thinking of the families who have waited years for this moment, and the children who will grow up in a town that promises them more. A photograph of Amara at the youth center sits in a frame nearby. Caldwell picks it up, his pride mingling with humility. He recalls her words, the courage in her voice, and the way she inspired others to speak up. He makes a silent vow to honor her example, to lead with the same dignity and resolve. Outside, the town is quieter than usual, but it feels different, lighter, more hopeful. Caldwell knows there will be setbacks, that not everyone will embrace the change, but tonight he allows himself a moment of quiet triumph. He stands, straightens his jacket, and prepares for tomorrow, determined to ensure the promise of today becomes the reality of the future. Small changes ripple through the town, almost invisible at first, yet unmistakable to those who have longed for them. A shopkeeper pauses as a black customer enters, offering a genuine welcome and holding the door with a nod, no longer glancing over his shoulder with suspicion. At the elementary school, a teacher reworks her lesson plans, making room for stories and voices that had been left out before. She asks her students what fairness means, listening as they share ideas shaped by the events of the past weeks. A police officer on patrol slows his car as he passes a group of teenagers, not to question or intimidate, but to wave and wish them a good afternoon. The teens, used to wary glances, return the greeting, surprised but smiling. At the park, an elderly woman sits on a bench, reading the local paper's coverage of the council's decision. She nods to herself, then strikes up a conversation with a young mother nearby, sharing memories of how things used to be and hopes for how they might change. Neighbors who once kept their distance now stop to chat on the sidewalk, exchanging recipes, stories, and small acts of kindness. In the bakery, the owner hangs a new sign in the window, "Everyone belongs." A customer notices and compliments her, the two women sharing a moment of understanding that goes beyond words. Amara walks through town, noticing these gestures, the open doors, the friendly waves, the conversations that cross old boundaries. She knows these are not grand gestures, but they matter. Each small act is a thread in the fabric of a new community, one being stitched together with patience and care. The change is quiet, but it is real, and it grows with every day, reshaping the town moment by moment, person by person. Amara sits on the grassy riverbank as the late afternoon sun glimmers on the water, the gentle current carrying away the last golden leaves of the season. She draws her knees to her chest, feeling the cool earth beneath her and the warmth of sunlight on her face. The events of the past weeks play through her mind. The accusations, the council meeting, the quiet shift in her neighbor's eyes. She lets out a slow breath, releasing the tension she's carried for so long. She picks up a smooth stone and rolls it between her fingers, remembering her mother's words. Stand tall, even when it's hard. With a flick of her wrist, she skips the stone across the water, watching the ripples spread outward, each circle growing wider, touching the far shore. The sound of children laughing in the distance blends with birdsong, and Amara smiles softly, comforted by the ordinary beauty of the moment. Her phone buzzes in her pocket, messages from friends, classmates, even strangers, all offering encouragement or thanks. She reads a few, heartened by their support, then tucks the phone away, choosing to be present in this peaceful space. The river's steady flow reminds her that change is slow but constant, that every act of courage and kindness adds to the current. As the sun dips lower, Amara closes her eyes, feeling the strength in her own resilience. She is not defined by the suspicion or the injustice she faced, but by the dignity with which she responded. She whispers to herself, They'll remember, not just what happened, but who I am. The words drift across the water, carried by the breeze, a quiet promise that her spirit remains unbroken. She stands, brushing grass from her jeans, and heads home, knowing the ripples she started will travel far beyond this riverbank.